morning, everybody. My name is Dee, and today we are presenting Dinorah Sapp. She's going to be talking about pop culture, how we can use it in the classroom, and I think it's going to be an amazing session. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dinorah. She's originally from Mexico City, and she has a bachelor degree in music and holds a master degree in language education from Indiana University. She worked for 12 years in an intensive English program at the University of Mississippi in Oxford. Her classroom experience has been at the elementary, high school, and university levels, and she has taught courses in all English language skills: reading, writing, speaking, listening, and pronunciation. Presently, she's visiting lecturer of Spanish at Indiana University. Dinorah is a former U.S. Department of State English Language Fellow and currently a virtual English language specialist in Monterrey, Mexico. So we are definitely honored to have you here, Dinorah. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time to be here with us and to share with us some of the knowledge and the experience that you have acquired through these endeavors that you have gone through. So thank you and welcome. And everybody, please, if you're joining us on stage, make sure that your video is on, that your microphones are muted, please. Okay. And if not, you can join us through the chat. We also have a section, a tab that says Q&A, questions and answers. So if you have a question through any point of the presentation, make sure to write it over there. So towards the end, we can go through all the questions and answers as much as we can. And Dinorah can give us some answers on it. Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome, Dinorah. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you for that great introduction. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. So yes, from Shark Tank to Mega Rapinoe, teaching through pop culture. I was lucky enough to be helping the Access teachers in Chile. So this is where this presentation comes out of, this module comes out of. So thank you for coming. So our agenda today is the following. I'm gonna give you a quick introduction about what we're doing, the motivation for these modules, and how to create a module. And then you're going to see samples of the modules in action. And then I'm going to introduce you to a great curating website called Wakelet. If you would like to follow with me, or if you would like to see the slides later on your own, you can take a picture of this QR code. This QR code will download the Google Slides for you. You can always email me. My own email will be at the end of this presentation, and I'll be happy to send you that. It'll also be on the Wakelet that later on we're going to look at. So there's plenty of opportunities for you to get these slides and all the information. So as Dee already said, I'm all these things, but I'm also a passionate a professional about making sure teachers have their voices heard. We all have tips, we all have experience, we all have something to share. So I'm very happy to share this morning with you. I'm not an expert, I'm just very passionate about teaching and how to be the best for your teachers and the best for your students as well. The motivation for this presentation was out of participation with English Access Micro Scholarship Program teachers in Chile through the Binational Center. And they had the question, how do we teach American culture and values? Because that's part of the Access program. So some of the challenges are, you are English language teachers in another country, right? And so you might be able to, look at pop culture, look at what's happening from afar, but how do you bring that in? So one of the things that is an opportunity for you is the internet. The World Wide Web is at your fingertips. So there are lots of good resources out there. And so this is the opportunity that you have to, bring your students a little bit of this culture, even if you're not from that culture. As a proud Latina, I live in the United States, but it's also, I've taught English abroad. So I'm always wondering, how do you represent certain groups of people? How do you teach these things? So I hope these modules and these ideas can help you out as well. So a quick overview on how did I make those modules, or if you want to do something that has to do with American culture or any other thing that you want to present to your students, how do I go about it? So first you, of course, think of a topic, and then you get objectives. What do I want my students to do? And then I have also, I base myself with the 6 principles of teaching from Tesol and our favorite Bloom's taxonomy. Then you have an activity, what's the end product for this module, for this thing that we're doing? And then I'll give you some resources. When we're looking at a topic, we need to think, is it relevant? Is it current? Is it going to be an engaging topic, especially with, culture? And also think about revisiting a topic with a new spin. For example, for Thanksgiving, you might want to revisit, how is it for Native Americans, for Indigenous people, for First Nations in the United States. For Labor Day, you might talk about minimum wage. There's a lot of talk in the United States about raising the minimum wage. So you can talk about that now. Also, I'm very intentional about marginalized, underrepresented groups in the US. So making sure that your students know about these people and that, those voices are represented. And then you also have people around your community. They might be expats, they might be other English teachers, business owners with international connections, family members, so bring them all in for this experience, for this module. I'm preaching to the choir here. We know what objectives are, but just remember your language objectives and your content objectives. What do you want your students to be able to do to accomplish the lesson? And then what would they take away from the lesson, from the module, what you're doing? So I guide myself by the 6 principles on Tesol, and I'm not going to go over all of them. This is a great graphic. You can find it online. But one of the things is knowing your learners and designing these for activities, these modules, to really engage your students. This particular modules, this particular ideas that I'm giving you don't necessarily have assessment because they're just presentations about culture, but if you can build in some sort of assessment to them. If the students are doing a presentation, make a rubric for that presentation. If the students are writing reaction paper, a reaction little paragraph about a video, you can grade that as well. And of course, we're engaging with our community right now. We're sharing ideas. I also go through Bloom's taxonomy to write my objectives, and I use a lot of active verbs. For example, the students will describe, the students will survey, so that I have steps on how easy and then how difficult the task gets for the students. And then what happens after they learn all that you have to share with them? Is it going to be a project? Is it going to be graded? And then how is it going to be shared? Where is it going to live, basically? Is it going to be something written? Is it going to be something posted? So we need to think about that as well. Now, I've separated my resources. These are more specifically for American culture and values. The US Department of State has some very good websites, especially American English. I hope everybody's using these resources. And then there's something else called A Guide to Answering Difficult Questions Abroad. This is a document for Americans who go abroad, but I found it very useful for teachers who are teaching American values to know, what do Americans believe in? What are their values? And so this is a great PDF that is very enlightening as an American, but also it can be very useful to you. Here are some reliable also and very good websites for, here's some good websites for news. So we have the Voice of America, we have Breaking News English, PBS, and the New York Times has lesson plans that are free. You don't have to, do anything or be subscribed to anything. They're there free for you. The US government has very good websites for teachers: the National Park Service, the Library of Congress, the National Endowment for the Humanities, and through the Smithsonian Museum, there's something called the Smithsonian Learning Lab. If you are interested in graphs or statistics or numbers showing your students' percentages, the Pew Research Center has very, very good graphics that are good for students to know what's happening, percentage-wise or ratios. And finally, I have English language arts. There's a website called Colorín Colorado and another one called Read, Write, Think. And these have to do more with reading and writing activities, but there's a lot of culture embedded into them. Finally, there are a couple of websites for sustainability, justice movements, if you're interested in that. There's a website called Learning for Justice. And then the world largest lesson, the UNESCO Sustainable Development Goals. And I know some of you use these sustainable goals in your classroom. So I'm going to show you how I used one of these for these modules. Now, what does it look like? What do these Wakelet modules look like? So let me show you the first one, and I might have to do some really interesting sharing and unsharing on my screen. So give me just 1 second so that I can have the correct tab here. So I'll show you the first one that I did. It's called equality. So here we go. And I'm going to present. And I think everybody sees that, correct? Yes, thank you. So I chose equality. That was an American value that my English Access teachers wanted to know more about, or I wanted to present that. And so I started with these two people. And I started with these two people, number one, because I know how big football is in Latin America. So my students, my audience was, Chilean teenagers and Chilean teachers, right? But also, there's been a lot of talk, and recently with Messi moving to another club, to another soccer club, and with Megan Rapinoe just coming out of, the Olympics. So this is pop culture at its best. How do we use these two people to teach something? For me, the best example was equality, and you'll see why in a moment. So I start asking students, who are these people? What do they play? And so you start engaging your students. And then we go down to the next level. I'm starting to get my students to say, or the Access students to say, think about equality. How are they similar? How are they different? And then I go to the main idea of the module. Do you think they're paid the same? So we're starting to get them to think about equality, right? Why or why not? And there's probably going to be a lot of debate between your students. You share with the students the objectives of the lesson. I'm very big about, making students know what they're going to do in class so that we together know if we have achieved our objectives or not throughout class. And then I start talking about, what is equality, guys? This is the textbook definition. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And then I gave them a little bit of how is equality done in the United States? What do Americans do with equality, right? And so I started thinking of everyday situations. And this is when, your experts or people who have the United States, you can ask them, hey, tell me some examples of equality, right? So using the resources that you have around you. And so no showing favoritism, trying really hard to know that women and men have equal treatment, but we still, they're still not the same status in some ways. And then I give them a little bit of history. Now, if you're teaching, for example, the civil rights movement, this can be a good place, this could be a starting point for you. You're teaching about discrimination, inequality, you can bring in also pop culture into that. Not only, the history with the civil rights, but if you want to make it more current, you can insert, this football reference into your lesson. And then I go back to football, soccer. What do you think winning the World Cup means for, women and girls around the world? And so I show them a little bit about, fans celebrating, but then I also tell them, they're chanting equal pay. What would they be saying, equal pay? And then I bring them to this great website, the Learning English website from the Voice of America. And so we talk about, they're paid less, and the men pay, they pay more, and when they win, they get millions of dollars as a reward, but the women get less. And so we're starting a conversation. Do you think that's fair? Do you think that's unfair? And so we need to know, what is going on with this equality with that. And then I think I'm off my screen here.
Hi, Dinorah. So your sharing screen is not working. Okay. Just let me know what slide you want me to go to.
Thank you. I think the next one. Thank you so much. The next one with I think the next one right after that one. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. And then the next one after that. Sorry about that. Yeah, so this is what I was saying. And this is, thank you. This is a graphic that I got from, one of our websites, one of our resources. And this is another way to show the students, the disparity, so that you can, go ahead and, discuss what's going on with this inequality, and what we can do about it. Next slide. Thank you. And then, how do you apply this? What do you do with this knowledge? So if we can go to the next slide, thank you. So this is where the UNESCO website came into place, and I found this. So if we can go to the next slide, this is a survey that the UNESCO lesson plan website has. And so you go around your town, you go around your community, and you see, okay, if you have a president, you check, is it male or female? If you have a doctor, is it male or female? So you're starting to see, the disparities or the equality. You might live in a community that's very equally female and male from different professions. And then in the next slide, they have a really good set of instructions on how to do a percentage. So if you see on one side is the female percentage of those professions, and on the right side is the male, percentage of those professions. So they give you like a mathematical number that you can, put in there. But basically, the students will see, oh, okay, a lot of the people in my community were male, and then very few were female, right? And so you start kind of bringing this idea, this discussion more into their own community, into their own space. So again, bringing pop culture, bringing football, bringing all these very current ideas, and then bringing them into a lesson, and then finally, having them turn around and say, okay, that was fun, but what about our environment? What about the people around us? So that's the one that talked about equality. Now let me try again and see if I can share. Hi, everybody. Let me try and see if I can share again my screen with the next one, which is innovation. And this innovation, there we go. Dee, how is this one? Do good? Okay. So this one is, I've done it with students at the university level. My access teachers will do it with their, probably with their access students or teenagers. I have done this in a third grade classroom. I taught third grade last year for a little bit here in the United States, and we did this too. So I've piloted this for many levels. So here we go. So for innovation, I want to focus on not only, people that are innovators, inventors, but this particular module has an end product, a very interesting end product. So I start with, looking at people. Who are these people? And your students might say, old people. And but my point here is I'm trying to get them to focus on inventions. So I tell them that Stephanie Kwolek and Alexander Miles, and they're responsible for the Kevlar vest, that policemen use, and Alexander is, responsible for the mechanism that, makes elevators go up and down. And so I give them a little bit of a, very brief biography. And then, why do we need these things? Why do we need a bulletproof vest? What's so special about an elevator door? So we're starting to think about innovation, people having ideas, people, going and making things. And then, of course, I gave them the objectives. And at the end, if you if you've seen American, maybe American shows, so anything about American shows, you can see that we have a Shark Tank. And I think I lost my slide.
Can you please try sharing again? Thank you.
Yes, sorry about that. I didn't touch anything. All right. So Shark Tank. Shark Tank is a competition where a lot of innovators, entrepreneurs come in front of existing business owners that have a lot of money, and they're trying to get their ideas, supported and, money. And so that's why it's called the Shark, because everybody's trying to, get the best idea, and they, fight for the best idea. So we're going to have a Shark Tank competition in your class after this module. So again, bringing pop culture from the United States into this innovation, this idea of innovation. So what is innovation? Get your students to brainstorm. I put a picture of, from the dictionary, what is innovation? And then we kind of have a definition. Innovation is an idea, an invention the first time someone tries something. And we talk about, how the two definitions overlap. And then it says, what about if someone has a good idea and comes up with an invention? And then I tell them about the Puff and Fluff dog dryer created by a third grader. And this was, a 9-year-old who saw her puppy, her dog, didn't want to take baths and it was all wet. So this is what she invented. She invented a dryer that you can, and this is for real, you can buy this in the United States. You can put your doggy inside and you put your dryer and then you turn it on and then your doggy gets dry, So that's a great idea. She had this idea. And I put, I started with the old people at the beginning because we have, the bulletproof vest and the elevators that are very important in everyday life. But in here, this is a 9-year-old. This is a young person, a child, who had this idea. So when you make your lessons, yes, present the history, but also try to find something that your students can relate to, somebody that they can say, oh, she did that. I think I can do it too. Or, wow, how did she do that? So kind of, again, knowing your learners, right? If you have older students, if you have younger students, bring something in the lesson that your students can relate to. If you're interested, I can send you the video for that. So what are we going to do with it? Shark Tank. So you kind of give them, you can look at the Shark Tank video. There's a little video clip. There's a clip where some kids are they have cones. You have a ice cream cone, and then you put like a cookie under the ice cream cone, and so that the ice cream, when it starts melting, it stays in the cookie, and you're not dripping down ice cream all over yourself. So you tell the students, would you invest money in the drip drop? Is it useful? Why not? And so again, you have lots of discussion with your students. And now you turn it to them, and then you say, now it's your turn. So it's up to you, however your groups work best. You can have people working together, 3s, 4s, 5s. You can have pairs. If you have a small enough class, you can have people just do their own inventions. And so you tell them you're going to make your own invention, you're going to create a product, or you're going to make a product that we already have better, right? So if you have, I have water right next to me, how will you make a glass better? How you make straw better? How you make a cell phone case better, right? You don't have to make up something brand new and completely earth-shattering product. Something that you use every day. How would you make it better? The steps that you tell your students is there's got to be a problem, right? Or there's got to be something that you say, oh, I wish this can be better. You create a plan. So how are we going to go about it? You design it, you think about the materials. And again, they don't have to go to the store and buy all these things. Look around. You have aluminum paper, you have sticks, you have, paper towels, whatever you can find around you. You build a prototype, and then you share your product to class. Now, you can make it as elaborate as you want to. You can stop with the prototype. You can just draw it and say, this is how I'm going to do it. Or you can actually have the students physically make the prototype. However your students work and however your situation is. I know a lot of us, or a lot of you too, are still teaching online perhaps. So, your students might not be able to go out that much, or they might not have the means to get all these things to make a new product. So however it works for your class. And then you have your short time presentations, and what we did in my case is we invited either business people from the community to look at their inventions, or we brought some teachers from other rooms and say, the students want to present something to you. So this, again, it's an opportunity to not only showcase your students, but also bring in people from the outside that can be mentors, that can be, another English that's being spoken in your classroom. That is those modules. Now I'm going to show you. I'll stop sharing again. Hi. I'll stop sharing, and then I'll tell you, where did I put these things? How are you going to present it to your students? How are you going to organize it yourself? Where is it going to live on the internet, as we call it sometimes? What is it going to look like? So this is a website called Wakelet, and it's free to register. And some people have called Wakelet a glorified Google share drive or a very academic Pinterest. So this is what it looks like. You get a place where you can put categories, and you can curate it, and you can put all of your resources in here. So for example, I made a collection for this particular conference. So I have my slides here, and then I have the modules that I created. And these modules are a shorter version of the big modules that I created for the Access program. So if I wanted to edit this module, if I wanted to bring more things into my module, let me show you what it looks like. So I go down, and I have the ability to put any website in here, and it will, populate. I can add text. I can add an image, a bookmark. Maybe I have a bookmark in my browser. I can bring it down. I can upload a PDF. And then the best part that I like about Wakelet is that you can embed a tweet, a Flipgrid video, a YouTube video, a Google Drive, something from OneDrive, or something from Adobe Spark. So as I make my modules, I bring them here and I put all of the resources into this module so that when I'm presenting to my students or I'm presenting to other teachers, I don't have to have like a million tabs open. Everything is one-stop shopping basically in here. So I add, for example, I can add something here. And then once you have that, if you have 2 or 3 teachers maybe doing the same module, you can invite them to collaborate. So you click this little button that says invite, and then you can copy this link, or you can take a picture, or you can copy a code, and then people will be able to, your teachers will be able to come and, come to this Wakelet and add things to it. This is also very good for sharing with your students. You can have, for example, let's talk about equality. We're going to do something about equality. What is equality to you? And so you invite your students, you give them this link, and then they come here and they start populating your collection with their websites that they've found. Or you can ask them, please come over here and write something related to today's class.
Dinorah, if you could please share again.
Yes, I noticed that we were off. Excellent. Yeah, so you can come and say, okay, in here, for example, we're going to say, what do you think about equality? And so I post it in here and it's right there. And then your students can come and click this guy and, answer. Or if they have a meme, they can come and post it in there. If they have a video that talks about equality, they can click on the app and they can go to the, to the YouTube video that they presented. So this is a way to get your modules, your lesson plans, whatever you're sharing with your students or with other teachers in a nice, nice, completely organized way. And then here it is, what do you think about equality? Something else that's good about Wakelet is that you can have, I don't know if you're going to hear it, but Wakelet can read. It has an immersive reader. So I don't know if you can hear.
No American culture textbook? No problem. This collection demonstrates how English language instructors can create American culture online modules culture using popular culture topics.
Right. And so if you have something that your students need to read, or if you have the instructions and you don't want to make a video of the instructions, you can definitely use Wakelet to share, to have your students kind of listen to that. So this is Wakelet. So I invite you to make your own Wakelet. Again, is free, and it's a great way to kind of put things together in a very, very unique way. Wakelet has also webinars, and they have lots and lots of ways for you to, for example, if you need to do a newsletter, it has templates where you can do a newsletter. Also, if somebody wants to copy your collection, you can allow somebody to say, okay, I like your collection, can I copy it to my own Wakelet? So you can share collections and templates in that way. So I know I went a little bit fast, but if you, I'm open to questions or suggestions. I can go back to any of the websites if you want me to stop and look at something else. But that is all for me for now. If you have anything else, I'll be happy to. We have plenty of time, so I'll be happy to review anything that you want me to look at. Thank you.
Danielle, so you had a question. If you want, you can, since you're here on stage, you can read it to Dinorah.
Sure, yeah. So I really, really liked the lesson plan that you had about equal pay and how you incorporated a real world topic with that and current events. So one thing I'm wondering is, have you run into any problems with any topics being considered political or getting in trouble with administration? I know that critical race theory is something that is quite controversial in the United States now, and I don't know if that is still the case or if that's the case in Latin American countries also.
Yeah, great question. We had this discussion, a little bit of this discussion, at least from the Chilean side. That's where we had the discussion. And something that we said is, number one, check with your teachers maybe and check with your administration. For example, I have another module with social justice movements, Black Lives Matter, Me Too, and LGBTQ issues. And again, like you just said, those are very controversial for some people. Some people don't want you to talk about them because it might make students kind of uneasy, uncomfortable, or you don't know how to talk about them. And you say, you know what, I see it and my students kind of know about it, but I don't know how to approach that. So number one, talk to your team. You know, hopefully you have an environment where you can go and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. How do we approach that? On your next teacher's meeting, say, hey, I heard this woman talk about, you know, making modules about some topics that are controversial. How do we handle that? So starting to think ahead of time, I think that's a good idea. What we also talked about is maybe, for example, LGBTQ issues, you might not be able to talk about them in public school or in your, you know, the public realm. And what we found is that when they come to English class, they're able to spell it out. It's a little bit of a freedom for the students to be able to talk in another language about, oh yeah, my cousin said something about gay, or oh, I saw that, you know, I saw that flag and I'm always wondering what that's for. So in a way, our language classroom is a place for students to kind of be relaxed and be able to talk about these issues. And I never thought about that, but that's the beauty of our classrooms. It can be a forum for your students to say, you know, I can't talk about that in Spanish or in this area, but you're allowing me to come here and explore this topic. And it's a little bit difficult to express myself in English because I have so many questions, right? But with the right scaffolding and with the, you know, the right way of doing things, you know, showing, you know, websites that are not so commercial, that are more, you know, like the learning, I think Teaching Justice website that I have, the UNESCO might have something else, but those are some of the things that we talked about. And if you get backlash, again, I will suggest have your talking points, you know, be ready and to say, okay, yes, I covered Black Lives Matter today because, you know, number one, it's a current topic and students are going to be asked about it. Number two, number three, number four. So I don't want to say have your, you know, do your homework, but have your justification. So show your lesson plan. Say, I'll be happy to show you my lesson plan. See, this is what we're teaching. Let's come together and let me know what difficulty are you having with the curriculum. But yes, there's a lot of pushback right now in the United States. And I think something that I also talk about in that module is starting to create that family feeling, that safety feeling in your classroom, right? If you don't have that ease in your classroom to know what, oh, her favorite color is blue and she likes to have, you know, ayuyas for breakfast, right? If I don't have that environment in my classroom, it will be really hard to come and say, hey, let's talk about LGBTQ issues, because you don't know your students. Your students don't know each other. So I would start laying the groundwork with a lot of icebreakers, a lot of get to know yous before you embark in one of these, activities that have to do a lot with personality, with, beliefs at home, or, prior prejudices that you might have, not only as your students, but as a teacher. And once you have that sense of community or safety in your classroom, then move on to say, hey guys, we're going to talk about this topic, and it's okay to be uncomfortable. Because once we get uncomfortable, that's when we're realizing, hey, why do I feel this way? What are my notions of, Black people? What are my notions about women? What are my notions about this? So creating that safe space is what's going to make your students probably be more engaged.
Thank you. And it's interesting to hear your answer, because when I taught in the United States public school, I was in California during the time when they were passing the law defining marriage as between a man and a woman. And this actually came up in my German class. And I was supposed to present both sides of the argument if any type of political issue came up, without showing any type of bias. Now, those students weren't at the level to really speak about it in German, so we did have the conversation in English, but it was quite uncomfortable. So I think that that's one element. And then also, if people are working privately with children, and if children ask about, what does something mean, I think that that can also be a little bit challenging to navigate that. So would you suggest something like asking parents if there are topics that are off limits or things like that? Or do you have any recommendation about a situation like that?
Yeah. As a parent, for number, because I am a parent of a 9-year-old, we have our teachers in the past have had, communication and say, we're going to talk about this. You can opt out of this activity, right? But the teacher also gives us the reasons why this activity is important, right? And so that's why I also mentioned, you cannot be 100% prepared all the time to answer all the questions, right? But if these are coming up more frequently, right? If students now with phones and with, Instagrams and hashtags and all this, if you're hearing this more and more, then you gotta be, you can't put it aside especially as a language teacher, you gotta be able to say, okay, these are, this is what it is. And just think also about yourself, how you answer. And we talked about this with the Chilean teachers. Kind of before you do the topic, what do you know, or what are your own beliefs about the topic? Like you say, Daniel, I knew my stance, but I have to present both sides, right? But at the same time, am I giving a little more, am I going this way more? Am I being fair to both sides? And also, again, if you have that kind of classroom, you're able to say, I feel women should be paid the same as men, or I feel that, yes, Black people are being, mischaracterized and they're being racially profiled. If it comes to that point, depending on the level of your students. But your students will ask, like you said, your students, the conversation will come up. So I would suggest ahead of time, maybe telling, sending an email, getting together with your director or with, whoever you are, and say, I want to do this. Let's get together. Let's draft an email. Let's tell the parents. Let's tell the stakeholders, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it in this way. We're going to present these things. And then the students might opt out instead of just saying, here it is. And then they go home and then the parents go, oh, I didn't want you to know that yet. And it might not be because, we never want you to know about that topic, but the parents might say, we wanted to share that with you at home. or we wanted to talk to you about that a little bit later. Right? So that's what I would suggest. I would suggest communicating with all the stakeholders, but also being brave. I know being a language teacher abroad takes a lot out of people because you have to speak English, right? You're not a native speaker and you're putting yourself out there, but also be brave in the fact that, yes, you're going to feel uncomfortable. Yes, it's going to be a little bit rocky, but you might be able to create this safe space for students, to talk about something that they can do in their own, in outside of your classroom, right? You might be opening a little window for somebody to either be themselves or express themselves, or know more about, oh, I know now the right facts about Black Lives Matter. What are we doing in Chile? What are we doing in Latin America with people that are underrepresented, right? So that kind of I want to use also the classroom as a spark, for social change, if any, if it can be done that way. But then, thanks for your questions, Daniel.
Thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you both. If we have any more questions, maybe about the platforms that Dinorah has shared with us, or any of the topics she's mentioned, please feel free to write them on questions and answers, or here on the chat, or if you want to join us on stage as well. Okay, so we have Rosa. She's asking, how would you grade their presentation?
Very good question. The presentation. So when I do the presentations, for example, let me share real quick the Shark Tank Shark Tank. Right. Okay, here we go. I'll share the last one of the last slides of the Shark Tank. So something that we need to be mindful when grading, when assessing, is, am I assessing what I ask the students to tell me, to do? So I would, for example, the presentation here would be, did they identify the problem? Did they say, we created, for example, this is my cell phone case. We created a new cell phone case because the one that we have currently kind of falls off, or the clasp, this little guy right here doesn't close very well. So that's a check mark, right? And then, did they create a plan? Did they design? Did they give you a piece of paper? Now, the presentation itself, I usually do the like body language. Are they presenting, I have a piece of paper. Are they presenting like this? Hi, my name is Dinorah. I'm gonna present to you about, you can't present that way, right? So how is their persona? How is their body language? Are they presenting to the screen like that? Are they frontal? I also do vocabulary. Do they have a wide range of vocabulary, depending on the level that you are? Their voice, are they presenting like this because, hi, my name is Dinorah and I'm going to present this to you, right? Or do they have a good, projection of their voice so that everybody knows where they are or what they're saying? Also, sometimes I grade not their slides, like how good their slides are, but can I understand what they're showing me in their slides? Are they full of like lots of little, pieces of information and, picture, or do they have something more streamlined, something that just has bullet points, like 3 or 4 per slide? Something else that I grade is their, how, if they're in a group, how is the rapport with the group? Like, is one doing 90% of the work and the other one is not? So I have like, works well with the group, needs work, or doesn't work well with their classmates. So think about what presentations look like, and these are some of the categories that I have, but you might have some more. And I do them sometimes on a scale from like 5 being like the top, 5 uses great vocabulary, speaks loud and clear, uses good visuals, and works good with a group. That will be your 5. And then you go down to the 4, 3, 2, the 1. If that's too complicated, sometimes I just do 3, 2, and 1. And so you just do your little categories for that. You can also be more holistic and just go say yes or no. If you want to do, one or the other, you can say, do they speak loud and clear? Yes or no. Do they use good visuals? Yes or no. So it's up to you to use that, whichever rubric you want to use. But that's what I've been using for presentations. At least for this particular one, we didn't have there wasn't an assessment per se for these modules. It was more of students talking, students kind of thinking about American culture, and doing these like the Shark Tank presentations just to present. They have other types of assessment in some of the other components of the Access program. But yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Thank you. I think it did. And as a follow-up question to that, would you take into account the observer's opinion or the guests that you're inviting? You mentioned, I think, something about bringing some guests over, like a Shark Tank scenario.
Yeah. I wouldn't put it as the rubric, but I would include it in like the comments. I always give comments, not very thorough comments to my presenters, but so if somebody's being really shy and doesn't project their voice, they might get a 2 or a 1. And then I make, a note and say, don't forget that the people in the back can hear you, or, you had your paper in front of your face. And yes, you can incorporate, if you bring a teacher and the teacher says, oh, that student or this set of students did a very great presentation, I would incorporate those into that. It's up to you also to give I don't know how you would do it, but to give your invited guests a rubric, and they might grade them, but don't take that into your rubric, but just kind of look and see, how are they grading it as opposed to how are you grading the students, just for you to see. But since they're guests, they don't know your students very well. They don't know what they've been going through. I wouldn't necessarily incorporate it into their grade per se, but if they have any suggestions, if they have any, comments, I would definitely let my students know about it. But also, I could also find an opportunity to know if I'm grading too easy or too hard on the students, just for my own opinion. But depends on how much burden you want to put on your invited guests for the Shark Tank presentations.
Perfect. And I think it also we would have to take into consideration who we're inviting. Like if there are some maybe like peer teachers that maybe they already know the students and stuff like that, then their input might be a little bit more on point.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. If if you happen to invite, that would be perfect. Invite business, from the business community in your area. Your students might actually say, hey, they like our idea. Maybe I want to go into business, or maybe I want to go into engineering, or maybe I want to go into marketing. So again, your English classroom is not only your classroom, but it's a lab for many things that can happen to your students. And of course, giving them English, you're already giving them a great step up, in the world for jobs, for opportunity, for personal reasons.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Karina, if you could please expand on your question so that we can present it to Dinorah, or if you want, you can join us here on stage and ask it yourself. It's about project design. So please feel free to expand your question. You also have in the chat the link for, how do you pronounce it? Wakelet?
Wakelet. Yeah.
Wakelet, thank you.
Wakelet. Yeah, no problem.
Completely different pronunciation. So you
No,
have the
that's
link
good.
over there. You can follow it. And I will also be sharing the Wakelet that we have.
Right.
This
If they were
Dinorah.
asking about project design, I don't know if this is where they were. This is what they were doing, but this is how not only I create modules, but I create my lessons kind of this way. And again, it's very basic, but it kind of grounds me to first start with a topic and objectives. Now, sometimes, to be honest, with the Shark Tank, I really wanted to do the Shark Tank, and so it's called backwards design. So I have Shark Tank as my last activity. How do I make it so that there's a component with objectives and something that is pedagogically sound? So in this way, I started with the end product, and then I work backwards. What are the steps for me to take to get to Shark Tank? And so I work backwards in that way. I didn't go, okay, let's do some objectives. So, oh, by the way, this could be good for Shark Tank. I went the other way around, and it works too. You just have to make sure that by the time you're at the beginning, that it's still matching your end product, and that you're hitting all of your objectives.
So we have her question here. She wants to know if she needs to follow some steps as a project design. Does she need to schedule, and does she need a schedule to guide them per weeks?
Sure. Oh, yeah. The pacing. The pacing is up to you too. For example, if you're doing one of these modules, you can have the students, for example, if you meet them just for like 50 minutes, maybe 3 times a week, you can, start with, okay, we're going to look at, if I'm thinking of the equality one, we're going to start looking at, the brainstorming with Messi and Rapinoe, right? And we'll just do that, and we'll, maybe get some vocabulary and do the objectives. And then the next class, you'll say, okay, we'll do some dictionary activity with equality, and then tell me what you think about equality. The next time you could say, okay, I'm going to show you a little bit of history on equality of the United States. And I always try to say, what do you know, students? What do you know about equality? So that, I'm not only, teaching you things that you already know, but I want to know, where do you come from? What's your background with equality? The next one, we could watch the videos. We could, have a reaction about equal pay. That could be another chunk. The reading for the VOA News, the reading, that can be a whole class session. And then the last one, where you go around your community, that could take a week. Going around your community, asking people, you come back and you talk about your results, and that percentage thing, that could be another week. So it really depends on how much time you have, but I will chunk it that way. I will start with, the basic intro, and then more of the history, and then finish up with, your product. And I think we're almost out of time.
So thank you so much, Dinorah. It's been amazing having you. Thank you all for your questions, for your comments. It's been an amazing session. We are really honored to have you all here with us today.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Have a great conference, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.